The birch stood at the edge of the forest, where the ground began to rise into a small hill. Its trunk was pale and smooth in most places, but one section near the base had opened over time, forming a hollow deep enough to shelter small creatures. Inside, a marten slept, its body curled tightly, its tail wrapped around itself like a warm band of fur. The hollow was dry, lined with bits of moss and old leaves gathered over many nights. Outside, the day moved without urgency. Light filtered through the bare branches of surrounding trees, settling in gentle patches on the ground. The air held the coolness of early spring, when winter had not quite released its hold, but had loosened it enough for the earth to exhale slowly. The forest remained quiet, though not silent. There were small sounds if one listened long enough. A twig settling, a bird shifting on a branch, the soft whisper of breeze passing along the bark. The marten did not stir. Its breathing was slow, the kind that comes with deep rest rather than exhaustion. The hollow held warmth the way hands cup water, carefully without force. The birch had grown around this space over many seasons, and the shelter it created did not feel accidental. It felt earned. A wood pigeon perched on a branch high above, feathers fluffed against the cool. It cooed once softly, a low sound that faded quickly in the open air. The marten did not wake. The sound was neither threat nor invitation, just presence. Near the roots of the birch, the earth was soft where last year's leaves had gathered and begun to break down. The remnants of the forest's previous seasons were always present, layered beneath what was new. The forest carried its past, without needing to recall it. The sun shifted, but not quickly. A slow change in angle brought a small, warm patch of light to the edge of the hollow's entrance. It did not reach the marten, but its presence made the hollow feel slightly more held. A place where time moved gently. A squirrel passed along a nearby branch, claws scratching lightly against bark. It paused to look around, tail flicking once, then continued on its way. The forest allowed movement without insisting on direction. The marten's ear twitched once, the smallest gesture of awareness in sleep, but it did not wake. Sleep was not a place it needed to leave. The day outside passed with no call, no urgency, no reason to shift its pace. The birch stood. The forest breathed. The light moved in slow lines across the ground. And inside the hollow, the marten slept, held by the quiet, unaware of time, and untouched by hurry. The second day came with a pale sky, a faint brightness that did not push warmth into the forest, but softened its edges. The birch remained still, its white bark catching the light in long, calm strokes. The hollow at its base held the same quiet it had yesterday. Inside, the marten slept again, not out of deep fatigue, but because the day outside asked for nothing more than rest. Its body remained curled, fur rising and falling in slow, even breaths. The hollow retained night's warmth longer than the open air did. Bits of moss on the inner walls stayed dry and soft. Nothing stirred the marten, not hunger, not sound, not instinct. Sometimes rest was the right shape for the day. Outside, the forest moved in its subtle way. A branch creaked where old wood met new. A cluster of last year's leaves shifted where a breeze touched them lightly. The movements were small, gentle, almost unnoticeable, unless one listened for them. A jay landed on a low branch near the birch. Its feathers held duller tones in the early spring light, the bright colors of summer not yet returned. It hopped twice along the branch, head turning side to side, watching without intention. It called once, a sound that echoed briefly and then dissolved. The marten did not wake. Farther away, the slow sound of snowmelt could be heard, where water trickled over stone. Not rushing, not loud, only steady. The forest carried water the way lungs carry air, quietly, without effort. The marten shifted slightly inside the hollow, stretching its front legs out and then drawing them back in again. Its whiskers brushed the soft lining of the nest. It did not open its eyes. The warmth inside was enough to keep sleep close. Outside, the sun moved gradually across the branches, changing the light but not the temperature. The forest did not hurry towards spring. It simply approached it one thin breath at a time. The trees stood patient, roots deep, branches bare but untroubled by their emptiness. A small field mouse passed near the birch roots, nose twitching, body quick but not frantic. It paused for a moment, sensing the stillness of the hollow, then continued on its path beneath fallen leaves. The forest made room for every quiet step. Nothing called for the marten to wake. Nothing required movement or action. The day outside drifted soft as an unwound thread. The birch held the hollow. The forest watched without watching. Time passed gently, without asking to be noticed. And the marten slept on, wrapped in the slow rhythm of a morning that did not need to become anything more. The third day brought a faint hint of warmth, not enough to change the forest, but enough to soften the edges of the frost along the ground. The birch stood the same, tall and pale against the muted undergrowth, its hollow still deep and sheltered. Inside, the marten lay with its body stretched a little longer than before, as though the slow warming of the day had loosened some small tension. Its eyes remained closed. Sleep came easily here and stayed without being asked. Outside, the forest continued its steady rhythm. A light breeze moved through branches that held no leaves yet, making a soft tapping when thin twigs brushed one another. The sound was not sharp, only a quiet reminder that even stillness contains motion. The sunlight filtered through in thin, cool shafts, landing in narrow lines across the forest floor. Much of the light missed the hollow entirely, but a faint glow reached the entrance, resting there like a small offering. The marten did not stir more than a slow rise and fall of breath. A robin hopped along the ground near the birch, its movements small and contained. It pecked once at the earth, then stood still for a moment listening. There was no urgency in its posture. Even hunger was unrushed here. The robin moved on shortly after, passing from one patch of light to another, disappearing behind a fallen log, softened by moss. Far in the trees, the distant call of a woodpecker sounded in a slow, even rhythm. The sound echoed between trunks, softened with distance. It did not disturb the forest. It simply marked time in its own quiet way. The marten shifted again inside the hollow, adjusting its tail over its nose. Its fur brushed softly against dried leaves and small pieces of bark. The hollow held the warmth gently, as though the tree remembered the creature and made space for it. A thin cloud passed across the sun, dimming the light slightly. The forest did not change because of it. The temperature did not drop. The air did not stir. The moment passed without needing to become anything. Near the base of the birch, the earth was damp where snowmelt had seeped slowly into the roots. The ground yielded a little under pressure but remained firm. The birch stood holding its shape, its hollow steady and familiar. Time in the forest moved like the river far away, slow, steady, without insistence. The marten slept, the birch rested, the forest breathed in a silence that did not feel empty. And the day continued, softly, without calling for anything more. The fourth day arrived with a clearer sky than before. The light came early and without hesitation, though it remained gentle, diffused by the thin air between the branches. The birch stood unmoving as always, its bark pale against the darker trunks nearby. The hollow at its base held steady warmth, enough that the marten inside did not feel the need to rise. Its body lay loosely curled now, not tight with cold, but relaxed in the way creatures become only when they feel unthreatened. Outside, the forest had begun to shift in subtle ways. The ground was still firm, yet not frozen, and here and there, small patches of soil had darkened where moisture touched it. It was not spring yet, but something like the idea of spring hung in the air, quiet, unspoken, patient. A sparrow fluttered down near the base of the birch, pecking lightly at the ground. Its movements were quick, but without alarm. It hopped closer to the hollow, then away again, unconcerned. The forest had no urgency in its body language, and so neither did the sparrow. The marten stirred once, only the slow flex of one paw and the faint tightening of its tail. Its ears flicked as the sparrow moved, but it did not wake. The hollow held it like a long, quiet breath. The breeze came later, a soft current that moved the tops of the birches just slightly. It did not touch the hollow directly. It only passed across the open air above. The sound it made was light, something like cloth folding gently. The branches swayed without creaking. The forest had learned to move without noise in seasons like this. A fallen log near the birch was soft with moss, the green muted and thin. A beetle crawled along its surface, its path slow but sure. The world here did not demand speed. It allowed every creature to move at its own pace. Small, steady, uninterrupted. The marten's breathing remained even. The hollow remained warm. The day outside remained open and unhurried. Farther away, somewhere out of sight, a deer stepped through the underbrush. Its hooves made a low, steady sound on the softened ground. It did not come closer. It did not need to. The forest held enough space for each life to pass without crossing. The sun moved slowly above the trees. Its light shifted and settled, but never demanded attention. The marten slept on, wrapped in the quiet shape of the day. Nothing called to it. Nothing required waking. And the forest, patient as always, let time continue in its soft, unbroken rhythm. The fifth day unfolded with light that felt slightly warmer, though the change was small enough that it might have gone unnoticed by anyone in a hurry. The birch remained where it always stood, its white bark catching the sun in narrow, delicate bands. The hollow at its base stayed shaded, a sheltered pocket of stillness. Inside, the marten slept as it had the days before, body loose, tail curved near its side, breath slow and steady. Outside, the forest carried on in quiet rhythm. A few small patches of snow still lingered where shadows held them, but most had melted into the softening ground. Where the earth darkened with moisture, thin green shoots began to appear. Nothing bold, nothing sudden, just the quiet return of growth. A crow landed on a branch above the hollow. It shifted its weight once, talons pressing into the bark. It did not call. It looked down at the ground, then toward the distant trees, then remained still. The forest did not ask for noise today. The marten's ear twitched, but it did not open its eyes. Dream and waking were not sharply divided here. The hollow allowed both to exist without urgency. The warmth from the marten's body held the space gently, the way embers hold heat long after flame has gone. The forest floor was softening enough that the scent of damp earth rose faintly when the breeze passed. It was a scent that meant change, though no creature needed to mark it. Change in the forest was not something to recognize. It simply arrived and was accepted. A roe deer moved quietly between two distant trunks, its steps soundless on the softened ground. It paused, head lowered, listening to something only it could sense. Then it went on. Its path did not cross the birch. Its presence did not alter the day. The sun shifted as it always did. The light at the hollow entrance brightened, then dimmed again as a cloud crossed its path. The marten remained asleep, though its breathing grew slightly deeper, as though the warmth in the air had reached some deep part of rest. Nothing called for waking. Nothing asked for movement. The birch held its hollow as it had through seasons before, and would through seasons to come. The forest breathed in slow measure, branches swaying in the slightest breeze, roots deep and patient. Time passed not forward, but around, soft and unhurried. The marten lay curled in its quiet shelter. The tree stood, the forest listened, and the day continued, neither changing nor staying the same, only unfolding in gentle, unspoken simplicity.